Hey, hello everybody. I'm your host Felipe, and this is the Total Bases podcast, talking some fantasy baseball and just baseball life in general here at the Baseball Life Facebook group. With me is in relief of Sean Flannery is Mr. Leon Tompkins. Leon, how you doing this afternoon?
Doing pretty well. Glad to come in the clutch and help you out. And just I'm doing pretty well watching the Nationals game here.
Yeah, for those who don't know,
against the Orioles.
Is that why you're wearing the Orioles shirt there?
Yeah, they've been kicking our ass all weekend, so I figured I might as well just wear the shirt.
Yeah, the Orioles are not as bad as I thought they would be right now. They've shown some gusto of sorts. They're not world beaters, but they're not pushovers either. Is that a fair assessment of the Orioles this year?
Yeah, it's a pretty fair assessment. Their starting pitching has been much better than I expected. I knew their lineup would hit, but their pitching is for some reason like all worldly. So
yeah, I can't explain that one. It's any fantasy baseball podcast I do at like in the middle of winter. And once I get to the Orioles, to help me get ready for the fantasy baseball season that's upcoming, I get to the Baltimore Orioles, and it's like the most depressing thing I could ever do is looking at that roster because they're just so god-awful. I remember Sean and I talked about the Orioles and how they have some nice young hitters coming up and blah, blah, blah. But then you look at them, and it's like, man, no, they suck, and they're nowhere near ready. How can their farm system be this bad? But, joke's on me. They're holding on to their own. They're trying to play some respectable baseball, so props to them for not being pushovers.
Yeah, I expected 3 easy wins, and I'm getting like cold sweats. So,
how are for those who don't know, Leon is a big Washington Nationals fan. How are the Nationals doing this year?
They lost the last 2 to the Orioles, and then one before. Oh no, they lost 3 straight because they lost the series ender to the Mets with Porcello. I think they're 4-7, so it's a rough go. Max got hurt. Strasburg came back today, so hopefully he can put this losing streak to a stop and get these guys going.
Oh man,
good to have Juan Soto back in the lineup though, so that's good.
Yeah, Juan Soto is actually in my Baseball Life league, and my team is just not as strong without him. So I'm glad that he's back. And as something I've been meaning to talk to you about, getting back to your fandom as a Nationals fan. How does it feel to be a World Series champion or to root for the defending world champs?
It feels good. It's kind of a weird year, not having a ring ceremony with no fans, and then having all the Astros scandal deflect from the fact that the Nationals actually won the World Series. So you can't can't celebrate it because nobody really cares. But otherwise, it feels pretty good. I know what happened. Washington, D.C. knows it happened. So I get to walk around with a shirt saying I'm a world champion. So it's cool.
And you probably answered this question already, but I think you live in New York, right? How did you become a Nationals fan?
I was a big Expo fan with the Montreal Expos before they moved to Washington.
But why the
Guerrero,
Expos, though?
Vladimir Guerrero.
It's that easy, huh?
That easy. I used to watch them when they faced off against the Mets at Shea, and Vlad stole the show on the field. He was the best player on the field to throw some right field, hitting balls in the dirt. I said to myself, I have to watch more of them, and I did, and I fell in love with the Expos and, Vidro, Orlando Cabrera, that group, and I followed all of them. I didn't follow Guerrero to LA, but I just liked the whole Expos vibe. I was able to pick up on it and switched over to Nationals. A lot of doom and gloom, and now it's a champ. So it's pretty exciting.
That's an interesting franchise right there. Even as a kid growing up, watching the Expos, I thought it was weird that, number one, it's a Canadian team. Number two, it's a French-Canadian team. And everything about them is just so weird and funky looking. But that's part of the appeal, though, right? Even Expos fans who actually live in Montreal will tell you about that, how funny it is that it's a very unique team, a unique franchise, unique town, and that's part of the allure, right? That's part of the appeal, is that they're so unique in that respect, and the players they fall in love with playing with the Montreal Expos. Maybe it's not the best baseball facility, maybe it's not the best run franchise. I mean, they had to relocate because it was such a poorly run franchise, but at its peak, they always did very well with player evaluations. They did it in the 80s with Andre Dawson, Tim Raines. They did it in the 90s with Larry Walker and Pedro Martinez on the latter half of the stages there. Dennis Martinez. Anybody named Martinez is going to do well with that Expos team, and at pitching, right? And I remember Vladimir Guerrero as well. And you're right about it. I mean, he was the player to watch. Even as a Cubs fan, I couldn't help but just be in admiration of him, So, I mean, that's a hell of a team to root for. But so it's pretty interesting that you have two teams in New York. You decide that, no, I'm going to root for this Vladimir Guerrero guy up in Montreal, Canada. But anyway,
I wanted no part of the Mets. It's just
even Mets fans still want part of the Mets, man. Come on. Speaking of Mets fans, look who it is. It's Jacob Anthony Moses. He's telling me to tell you to screw the Nationals and Expos.
He can kiss the ring.
Kiss the ring. Yeah, that's right. Take that, Jacob. Your fellow podcast mate over at the Ball is Life Facebook group. We're talking some hoops over there. Go ahead and tell people, plug your show over there at Ball is Life, please.
We catch us Wednesday nights. Ball is Life group, Stepback. My main man, Jacob Moses. We talk hoops over there. And set with the restart. It's a pretty awesome show. Not in Ball is Life. Join. But you're right on in. But we catch us Wednesday nights, 8 o'clock. Stepback.
And you recently had Erin, our admin extraordinaire from Canada. We just talked about Canada, and she's a big Toronto Blue Jays fan.
Yep.
So that was the last episode.
She was great.
She was really fun, talking about Canadian hoops. And what was it? She was, I think she made the, there was some comparison that she made that kind of had me scratching my head. But it came down to it sounding her like she was comparing Kyle Lowry to Patrick Ewing or something, or I don't remember exactly how that went.
No. It was Kyle Lowry to pretty much Vince Carter couldn't make the shot that Kawhi made, but Kyle Lowry is, more or less what Patrick Ewing would have a statue outside of the garden if he ever won a championship. So Kyle Lowry is the man in Toronto.
No, I've always liked Kyle Lowry, though, but that's another topic for another podcast for sure. Fantasy baseball, let's get to it. How long have you been playing fantasy baseball, Leon? Go tell the folks over there.
I've been playing ever since my senior year of high school. So I guess that's 18 years?
Yeah.
So I've been doing it for a while, won a few leagues, won some money, but I've been doing it for a while. It's really fun getting to know the players and watch the games. It's just expanded so much over time.
Yeah, I think same with me. I think that's when I started. We finally got a computer back in the year 2000 after begging my dad for one, and the first thing I did was play fantasy sports. My first draft pick ever, Leon, in any format, Michael Finley, first round. I was so proud of myself.
Jesus.
Yeah, my team sucked. I think I went winless for like the first few games or so, but I made a run of it, got to fourth place. I thought, hey, this isn't too bad, and I've been on that ever since. So it's like we kind of have similar background there. What is your preferred scoring format? Do you do roto? Do you do points? I know you mentioned you're in a daily league, head-to-head, but is that, roto or points?
Well, I would prefer points, but It's because my friend runs a daily head-to-head league, so it's sometimes you kind of find it difficult to remember to set your lineup each day. So sometimes I try to set it during the week, but um, points or roto, either way is fine. I wanted to do a dynasty, but I haven't got around to it yet, and this year is really hard to start doing it, so might start next year.
Yeah, hopefully for you next year. And if we ever have a spot open in our fantasy baseball league, I'll definitely consider you. I know there's like a waiting list to get in that one, but you'll be considered as a top candidate. I'm also in a keeper league too, so I'll definitely consider you as well. That's not actually, I'm not even in a dynasty. They're both keeper leagues, I should say. They're two keeper leagues, but
Okay.
one's points, one's categories. They're both head to head. But yeah, man, if we constantly have people falling out. So we have to find replacement players, and good to know. I honestly, when I think about you, I think about basketball because of the podcast. But good to know
Right.
that you also do fantasy baseball, because I wasn't 100%
Oh,
sure.
oh no, I do it all.
You do it all, even hockey.
I I did hockey for a bit, and then I kind of fell out of it with
Yeah.
everything going on, and then I follow it, but not enough to do fantasy hockey. I'd just be throwing shit in the wind.
Oh man, yeah. Well, yeah, we could talk about my early endeavors into fantasy hockey way back in the day. But I think I'm just like you. It's like they had the multiple lockouts during the 2000s, and it's
Hmm.
just like, all right, well, let me know when you all want to take this seriously, because I can't keep waiting for you guys to get your shit together. And apparently they're doing well now, but I mean, it's still the same arguments about hockey are the same arguments I used to uh, discuss back on. It's funny because you have an AOL email account. Back when I was on AOL
Yeah.
chats, that was one of the big arguments was, well, hockey's so cool, but nobody's watching it. And it's the same goddamn arguments to this day, Leon. Hockey's so cool, but nobody's watching. The ratings are always so bad in terms of TV. No one's paying attention, blah, 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 blah. So that's another story for another time. Anyway, people are here to watch some people. Sorry, I just got flustered there. Uh, can you hear me now, Leon? I think you're saying, yeah, we're good. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry about that. Sometimes the internet comes and it goes. But let's get going. We're going to be here to talk about some fantasy baseball, and I'll go ahead and share the first spreadsheet because that is the thing I do here. Just give you guys a visual. And what's the thing that everybody's trying to look for? We're always trying to find starting pitching help, right? And Leon,
All
let
the
me know
time.
if you could see that or not, please.
I have a black screen.
All right. Just give it a few seconds. But as I was talking about, that seems to be like the big thing is like we're always looking for fantasy baseball starting pitching help. Always, constantly, it never ends. I'm gonna stop sharing and reshare
Yeah.
again. And it's like we haven't had a chance to talk about it since we came back from my, what do you call it, my paternity leave of sorts. So I decided
Right.
we should take some
You
time to
good?
talk about it now. And see if we can help those people out there who are in need of fantasy baseball starting pitching help, which is, I don't know about you, Leon, but that seems to be, for me, it's always like a never-ending quest. Like, who am I going to start this week, right? And
Always is.
can you tell me if you can see that screen, yes or no?
I can see it.
Okay, because I can't see it on my
You're
end.
good.
So it like froze on my phone or something.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, and usually with the starting pitching help, so me in particular, I draft a bit differently than I guess most people because I usually draft pitchers early based on I always had the theory that starting pitching, your aces will always come out with the same numbers,
Yeah.
and you can find hitting anywhere else in any particular position that you would need. So I don't usually try to. I usually don't have the issue of finding pitching elsewhere unless I suffer an injury. But in this case, during this season, with such all the teams getting suspended and whatnot, it's very hard to get a consistent lineup.
Yeah, the injuries are adding up. Everybody has a forearm strain. Everybody has elbow tenderness, and if not, there's that dreaded COVID virus that just seems to be getting everybody and everything. So I feel like this season more than ever, it's like you constantly have to look at the waiver wire for help at all times, right? It's like you're constantly looking. And that's what I see myself doing. That's why I compiled this little list. It's not the most impressive list, but it's a list nonetheless of more than likely available players out there. I mean, you got Pablo Lopez from the Marlins, who I liked a lot last year, but then he got hurt last year. He's back, finally getting around to his first start because of the Marlins partying too much. We don't know where exactly, but they've been partying too much. But he finally got his debut in this past week. A very strong performance from him. Numbers-wise, he seems to be at the top of the list. I mean, 12 strikeouts for 9 innings, that's pretty damn good. But we don't know. That's just one game, right? We don't know how good he could be. We know what his baseline is based on last year, but we don't know if he can be this dominant for the rest of the season. What do you think about Pablo Lopez, your Marlins division rival right there?
So Pablo Lopez, I did like him toward the end of last year. I thought he would come on strong this year, along with the rest of that Marlin pitching staff. Although they pitched contact, his K rate seems to be higher than the rest of the Marlin staff. You look at what he would face in the division, such as the Braves, the Nationals, and even across the way in the AL East, the Red Sox and the Orioles and whatnot. If you're looking for Case, I think he would be a decent guy to pick up. You know, he's going to give you 2 starts a week if you need it, as long as the team doesn't have another outbreak. But I like Pablo Lopez over there for the Marlins.
Yeah, I like him too, but I didn't pick him up this week just because I want to see more of him. Although, you know, I would strongly suggest if you have the room for him to go ahead and pick him up. I think he's worth it. He's shown that he can hold his own last year, and he's off to a rip-roaring start this year. Another guy that's listed here, and we're not going to go through the whole list. We're just going to see some guys here that are kind of worth maybe looking at. Is Framber Valdez of the Astros. It looks like he's going to be getting all the starts that he can handle for the Houston Astros, as that team's just decimated with injuries right now, and it's yeah, they need all the arms, all the healthy arms they can get at this point. The only concern that I have for him is that he has very low swinging strike percentages, which for a guy of his stature, I would like to see it be higher. Like look at Pablo Lopez. I mean, it's only one start for Pablo Lopez, but last I checked, 16% is way better than 6.8%, and I need that number to be a little bit higher for me to trust him. Plus, he gets hit hard. As you can see, 60% hard hit rate. And again, these are all the numbers I get from Fangraphs, so they're not the StatCast numbers that Sean Flannery likes to share. But I figured, you know, this. I feel comfortable using these figures because you get the results, you get the results stats along with the underlying stats that that compiles a player's persona or characteristic of sorts. But yeah, Valdez, intriguing guy, but there's something off about him. He gets hit hard. He doesn't miss a lot of bats, as you can see here from his outside the swing rate, 18.3%. No one's biting, Leon. No one's biting at all. What do you think about Framber Valdez of the Astros?
This is a pitcher I would avoid. So due to the opponents he would face, when they the Angels, well, the Rockies, the surprising Colorado Rockies, all Portland lineups, low swing and miss rate. They don't chase, disciplined lineups, and any pitching staff with Dusty Baker in it, I would definitely avoid.
Oh, but he's changed, Leon. He's changed. That's what everybody tells me.
Yeah. The toothpick just doesn't do it for me. But yeah, Valdez is a guy I would definitely avoid here.
Really quick, I forgot to mention that at the very least, I know for sure Garrett Richards and Tyler Mahle, they are 2-start pitchers this upcoming week. I immediately picked up Tyler Mahle in my points league because he gets the 2 starts against two very easy opponents. I know it's the Pirates is one of them, and I forgot who the first game is. But I remember looking at it. It's like, wow, I can't believe no one has picked this guy up. And he seems to be on the up and up. Then look at the strikeout rate. K per nine, I should say, is at 9. Again, doesn't get a lot of swings outside the strike zone. As you can see, it's a lot better than Framber Valdez, but I'd like to see that to be a little bit better than 29%, getting guys to chase. Has not given up a home run yet, which is remarkable considering that, at least his home run per 9 is 0, which is remarkable because his home games are at Cincinnati, which is a home run derby always waiting to happen there. Of the two, Garrett Richards or Tyler Mahle, who do you see as a better long-term prospect there for this year?
I would say Tyler Mahle. I think he has a chance to break into that rotation. DeSclafani, I think I'm not sure if he got hurt, but
he got hurt, yeah.
He picked, yeah, and so I think he has a really solid chance to take his place, and with the teams such as the Cardinals and the Cubs, I think he'll have a really decent chance to really make some hay in that division.
Hay in the middle of the barn, yeah. I've always liked Garrett Richards, but he's always hurt, and he has two really tough matchups. So one is against the Dodgers this week. The other one's against the Diamondbacks and Madison Bumgarner. Not that Bumgarner is a threat like he used to be, but it's still Madison Bumgarner, and I don't want any part of that this week. If you're desperate for those two starts, you want the quantity over the quality, go ahead and pick him up. He's always an intriguing guy because he has the stuff. He's a StatCast darling, but man, it's like I don't know what's holding him back from putting it together and just being the dominant pitcher that his scouting report says that he should be. Leon, any pitcher from this list that we haven't mentioned that you want to talk about here?
I will say the best long-term solutions from this list, I would say Porcello, a veteran. I think he just needs some time to get his game in. A sinker ball pitcher usually works better with a fatigued arm, and he showed promise in his last outing, albeit against the Nationals. He went to 6-7 innings solid. And Tommy Malone, he also showed flashes last year, but his changeup to be again this year, solid outing on Friday night. They picked up an 11-0 win also against Washington, but his changeup seems to be on point this year. And I think he is the one pitcher from the Orioles, I think, who might last.
Yeah, I noticed that the Orioles are encouraging a lot of changeups from their starting pitchers this year. I forgot who it was that I was watching against the Red Sox, and I think it might have been Tommy Malone, who's just throwing nothing but changeups and just flabbergasting Red Sox hitters. And Red Sox have a pretty potent lineup, even though they're kind of decimated from years of no more Mookie Betts on that team, but they're still they still can hold their own. And he's out there throwing 86 mile per hour fastballs and 85 mile per hour changeups, and it's just ridiculous. But so far, you can't argue with the results. 1.14 WHIP, which is, if you're in a 5x5 rotisserie league, that's always important. Respectable ERA at 3.21. So I don't trust them, but if the matchups are right, I don't see why you don't start him. Especially for you're in a daily league. I'm pretty sure if you see him facing a team like the Pirates, for example. You're all over that, aren't you?
Oh. I'm a believer in Chama.
Oh yeah, you're in a daily league. You got to be a believer in matchups. So, and that's the starting pitchers right there. Not a very impressive list, but this is the part of the season where we're like, especially in a league like this, in a abbreviated 2020 season like this. The pickings are always going to be slim, so you got to do what's best with the lot that you get. Life hands you when fantasy baseball hands you lemons, you make lemonade out of it. So that takes care of one aspect of things. Something else that I wanted to do was talk about first base help. I made a big stink about picking up Dominic Smith in all of my leagues last week, Leon. There he is, Dominic Smith, and I find out that maybe he's not the guy after all. I don't know. I had to really reevaluate things, and he's not having that bad of a season, but it's not good either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Dominic Smith was a victim of Cespedes. I think he needed the time to get the ABs, to get the timing. I always thought he was a dangerous hitter. Once, as you see this week, he's starting to pick it up a bit. Uh, Now that you know he's the DH, full-time DH, I think he's a solid pickup.
Yeah, and
If he's not been picked up already.
yeah, like I said, I picked him up in all my leagues, but I'm like, I need more. I need more for my first baseman. It's like I'm kind of desperate. And this is what I get for not taking that position too seriously, because I thought it went 20 deep, and it turns out no. It's if you missed out on those first 8 or 9 guys, you're kind of scrambling. That's what I'm doing right now in all of my leagues. And I thought Dominic Smith would do a lot better this. And like you said, he is doing a little bit better this past week, but I need more. And I went out and started looking for other first basemen. And let's see here. Let's sort this by hard hit rate just to see who's been hitting the cover off the ball. And there's this guy named Jake Cronenworth from the Padres, who's kind of starting to get some at bats because Eric Hosmer is injured. I went out and picked him up in all of my leagues just because his story is kind of intriguing. They're saying that he worked during the pandemic when baseball was shut down. He continued working very hard, and that was enough to impress the Padres. And now they're saying that once Hosmer comes back, he's going to get regular at-bats at second base. He already qualifies at shortstop. If you haven't been listening to my podcast, Leon, on a regular basis, you'll know I'm a sucker for versatility. You play like 6 positions, I want you on my team, So I went out and picked him up, but I still need a formidable first baseman, because I don't know about this Dominic Smith guy. I just don't know what to think about it. I believe in him, but I'm desperate. So aside from Dominic Smith and Jake Cronenworth, do any of these other guys right here, do they do anything for you whatsoever?
I would say Aguilar. Now, that Marlins lineup is a bit weird to me because they hit the ball hard, but they also strike out a lot. I thought it was a big loss for Alfaro, but Cervelli seems to not have missed a beat. I'm a big fan of Corey Dickerson, and the way their lineup is set up, I think Aguilar has a chance to really rack up some numbers. So, and he's going to get regular at bat. So I'm a big believer in Jesus Aguilar.
Yeah, and that's what I ended up doing for us. I think I don't know if I did it for all 3 of my teams or not, but I definitely did it for 2 of my teams. And I just went ahead and picked up Jesus Aguilar, despite the fact that I think he's only playing 5 games this week, which is really stupid, unless that's an old schedule I'm looking at. But knowing how this season is zany, maybe he is only playing 5 games in an abbreviated season. But so far, there's a lot to like about here. I mean, I just highlighted the walks and strikeouts. I mean, that's pretty damn respectable to not strike out that much and be able to work those counts and get that 8.1% walk rate for a guy who's an aggressive swinger. That's kind of intriguing to me. He's off to a great start. He doesn't chase pitches, as he's only at 32.5% of outside the swing rate. I'll go ahead and highlight that there. So I like him a lot. If I had the space for Dominic Smith, I put him on my bench, but I don't have the space for Dominic Smith. Another guy, Renato Nunez. He's always kind of lurking on the waiver wire. I mean, you're getting a first-hand look at him. What do you think of Renato Nunez so far?
I remember a bit of him from last year, and when I looked at his numbers at the end, I wondered how he ended up with 30 home runs. And I mean, he swings hard, and then I think he's a viable option. And then I never know what to expect from this Orioles team as far as how the lineup is constructed, how many opportunities will he get, and so far this Baltimore team has surprised me. So he has respectable numbers. I like Nunez as well if he's available, which I doubt, but
He's available.
I'd pick him too.
No, he's always available, man. Nobody really likes him, and this is a little concerning. 15.6%. Excuse me, 15.6
Yeah.
swinging strike rate, which is he's a hacker. But
Yeah.
you can't argue with the results. I highlighted the results right here in green. The batting average, the on-base percentage, it's pretty high up there. I mean, he can be useful in leagues, but again, he's plays with the Orioles, not a very well-known player. There's a lot to prove with him, but I think if you're desperate, you could do a lot worse. You can end up with Todd Frazier or C.J. Cron or whatnot. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wouldn't touch Todd Frazier or C.J. Cron with a 10-foot pole.
I actually have C.J. Cron in the fantasy baseball life group league, but I benched them recently. But every time I want to cut him, it's like, well, there's nobody else that's better because that league is so that league runs deep. I think we all each have 33 players on the roster Sean and I expanded the rosters because of COVID, and yeah, the pickings are slim on the waiver wire as it should be. Anybody else you want to discuss on this first base list, Leon?
Jock Peterson, I think he suffers from not enough at bats.
Yeah.
I think he'd be a solid player if he just ever got consistent time. It sucks for fantasy purposes, but and Daniel Murphy. I'm a big Murphy guy. He was huge for Washington. It's nice to see his resurgence a bit in Colorado.
Yeah.
And plus, with his versatility, I think he's still second base eligible.
I'm not 100% sure on that. I didn't see him at second base, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he gets moved a lot. I mean, he's one of those guys from the mid 2010s that teams are like, hey, you know what? If we move this guy over here and over there, we have a super utility. Everybody's trying to always look for that next Ben Zobrist. That's what I'm trying to say. And I think he was one of those guys at one point in his tenure, in his long, storied career. I mean, playing in Colorado, that's always helpful. And I believe the Rockies are also hurting a little bit. I forgot who they lost. You know what? I'm thinking about Ian Desmond, who already opted out anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
He should be getting regular at bats at this point. All right. Well, that's good enough for the first base. And let's move on to middle infielder as we're actually moving along rather quickly. Any comments worth noting over there, Leon, from the people out there?
Larry, my good friend Larry Rodriguez, saying that he subscribes to the same theory that I do as far as draft, as far as going after pitchers early.
Wow.
And he made a point to say Castellanos is really killing it early.
Yeah. Man.
It's not surprised about. Yeah.
Don't even get me started, man. First and foremost, let me know if you can see the next spreadsheet that I'm about to share here. But second of all, as you guys know, or some of you know, that I'm a big Cubs and White Sox fan. And I really wanted Castellanos to come back to the Cubs. And if not the Cubs, I really, really wanted him to at least go with the White Sox. And instead, he goes to Cincinnati, which breaks my heart because, as I tell Matt Bushel and all the White Sox fans out there, it's like we could really use a Nick Castellanos right now playing in our lineup every day. So,
yeah, I considered Castellanos like, I wouldn't say a poor man's Rendon, but he always had a lot of doubles. He went to the opposite field well.
Yeah. And
his power got improved a bit in Chicago for the Cubs. I was surprised he wasn't chased after more by more teams. So I'm a big Castellanos fan. And in that Reds lineup, in that ballpark, I mean, he's going to put up his numbers.
He should be. I mean, it's a perfect situation for the guy. I mean, once again, I'm experiencing some technical difficulties trying to share that next spreadsheet. I don't know why it won't let me share it. But since we're talking about Castellanos, let's take a moment, give the Zoom a break from doing all this fancy work from us. Like, he's a good clubhouse guy, is what I found out in his time here. He's very emotional. He treats every single day like opening day, is what we found out about him, which is pretty admirable because most guys, they get to this part of the big leagues of their careers, and it becomes a job naturally, right? It's a job. They get paid to do a job, right? And he treats it like it's the first day of his new life, being a baseball player. Like he takes he still has that kid mentality about it, and that goes a long way, especially in a season like this where it's unpredictable. And yeah, like I said, I was pretty sad that he couldn't stay in Chicago one way or another. I know he loves the city. Like he admitted as much when he was still here, and yeah, it just sucks that he went to a division rival in Cincinnati, and now they get to what do you call it? Reap the benefits of taking a chance on him. And like you said, I don't know why other teams weren't looking. Maybe other teams were content with their outfield situation. I know all these teams are trying to go cheaper and younger, and Castellanos is already entering his 30s. So let's try this one more time. I'm going to try something else. Let's see if this works. And no, I don't know why it's not doing it.
No.
Wait, I see something. There it goes. Okay. That was weird. I don't know why I kept doing that. But anyway, here is we move on to the next list here, and this is the list of second base and shortstops that are somewhat available in fantasy leagues. Again, there's that man Jake Cronenworth, who I'm kind of intrigued by it. I already told you some backstory about him. Let's sort this. Oh yeah, it is sorted by weighted runs created plus. So anything above 100 is always good. So let's go back to that. So weighted runs created plus, right? Anything above 100 is pretty damn good. Anything below 100 is below average. So below average are guys like Jonathan Scope, Andres Jimenez, Ryan McMahon surprises me that he's not above 100. Probably because he gets penalized for batting at Coors Field, but he's also not having a really good season, as you can see from his percentages here. And I'll go ahead and highlight that there. And Ahmed Rosario, who's just a very frustrating player to watch because I think the world of him. I've always liked him. I took a chance on him in my keeper league, and it's like he's not putting it together. Shed Long, another former, we just talked about the Reds. This guy's a former Reds prospect, got traded to the Mariners a while back ago. And I think the only reason he gets a lot of love is look at that, 65 plate appearances. So what I say earlier today, Leon, showing up is half the battle. So this guy shows up and people are trying to bank on, and 3 stolen bases always helps. So that's the only reason he has a job. But me, I don't care about that. Like I need you to produce for me, man. I don't want you. I don't want these fringe players. And finally, Nico Horner of the Cubs, who has a lot of good hitting tools, but it's just not scaring anybody. So with that being said, all those guys with the less than 100%, here's the challenge for you now. Less than 100%, what do you call it, weighted runs created plus. Who do you like from this blue highlighted list to kind of turn things around in this abbreviated season this year?
Ooh. Getting the pick from Storm. I have a soft spot for Rosario because you look at him and you, like you say, it's frustrating. You know the tools are there. He ended last season strong, but his defense keeps him off the field. And then you look at his replacement, Jimenez. He has some tools, but I don't think he'll be here long enough to really exploit those tools.
Yeah.
So if I had to pick anyone, it would be Scope. I look at the veteran. You see what he did with the Orioles, what he did with the Twins. He has power, and that Tigers lineup is, Tigers lineup. I would go based off track record alone with Scope.
Yeah, he's getting 52 plate appearances already. He's going to play. I mean, they need to showcase him because I think they're going to want to trade him. He has decent counting stats, 3 home runs, 8 runs, 8 RBI, which if you're in a traditional 5x5 league, that's all you can ask for from your second baseman. But if you're like in an on-base percentage league like I am, first of all, no walks whatsoever, just like Rosario, 0% walk rates.
He will never walk. No,
I know he doesn't walk. But when you have a like Rosario and Scope, they supposedly have like very quick bat speed, right? and that's
Right.
part of the intrigue. But unlike Rosario, who doesn't strike out a lot, this guy Scope, 28.8%. That's deadly right there for any league. I know if you're in a traditional 5x5, you don't really care, but it affects your batting average, and that means you're not putting the ball in play, so you can't get on base and score runs or even steal bases. So yeah, it's a double whammy for him, and he does just enough to be relevant. Jonathan Scope does, but there's a lot to not like about him either. What were you gonna say? I think I butted in right there with you.
No, it makes perfect sense because with his lineup, he figures he has to do all the work, which is a track record anyway. And you made the excellent point of veteran showcase. I mean, you might as well put up his numbers.
Yeah, and with everybody, injuries are everywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if a team contending is desperate enough to give up a prospect, maybe not a high-grade prospect, but a mid to low-level prospect for Jonathan Scope, just because he could play second base. And, he does provide those counting stats, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. But look how impatient this guy is. 52.6% outside the strike zone swing rate. That he literally every other pitch, if it's outside the strike zone, he's swinging, he's chasing. So that's pretty funny. I like Nico Horner, and not just because I'm a Cubs fan, but I'm not wearing the right shirt today, but but there's something intriguing about him too, because I know the numbers are not there, but he limits his strikeouts. He walks enough where you're kind of there's something going on here. Very patient hitter. And 83.9% contact, 71% outside the strike zone contact. The hitting skills are there, right? It's just, can he?
Pretty impressive.
Well, can he hit with authority though? That's the question. Look at 6.4% swinging strike. He's very patient, and there's some promise. 39% hard hit rate. So there's some promise here, Leon. But can he really hit the ball with authority and be productive? That's the thing about him. And he qualifies at both second base and shortstop. Again, versatility matters in this realm. And like I said, it is impressive, but it's like, all right, well, we know what you can do. Can you actually go out and be productive? That's the thing about him. So we talked about Jake Cronenworth already, so that's a given. Listen, you got to pick him up right now. Just while you're listening to me talk, go on your ESPN, Yahoo, Sportsline, Fantrax, whatever, and go pick up Jake Cronenworth. I think he's worth it. He's going to be eligible at second base. He's already eligible at shortstop. He's eligible at first base. The Padres are in love with him. There's a lot of, minor red flags, but I think he's worth the price of admission. Go ahead and pick him up. Anybody else from this grouping right here that you're kind of wondering if you should pick him up right now or not?
Dansby Swanson is a guy that, along with like Rosario, always intrigued me.
Yeah,
he hits the ball hard, but he kind of the streaky hitter. He gets all of his counting stats in bunches.
Yep.
You can pick him up for 2 weeks, he'll be hot, and then struggle for the next 3. So you kind of want on like it's really a roll of the dice with him.
Look at this, Leon. 37.7 strikeout rate. You talk about streakiness. This is streaky right here. Impressive counting stats, and then no, I don't want that. And I think that's
the type of.
Go ahead.
He is the type. I'm saying he is the type of guy that, like, depending on the week, he can win you a championship if you get him at the right time.
When is the right time though with him? That's the thing. I thought, I picked him up last week. Sean even encouraged me to pick him up last week, and sure enough, the first game of this week 3 period strikes out 3 times. I'm like, oh well, there goes my week. This has been a crappy week for me, but having Dansby Swanson did not help me whatsoever. Let's take a look at here. 49.4% swinging percentage. So every other pitch that he sees, he's swinging at it. I don't know what's up with him. Like you said, he came in with all the tools, with first round pick, right? He was a first round pick for the Braves.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Diamondbacks.
Oh, that's right. He got traded to the Braves, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what happened. And I forgot what deal that was. I think Dave Stewart was a general manager still, right? Under Tony La Russa's tutelage.
Yeah, it was a pitcher. I forgot the pitcher's name.
to Shelby Miller that came back as well.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Shelby Miller.
Shelby, oh God, what the hell were they thinking? But like you said, I mean, this is why we are very intrigued by Dansby Swanson. 54.3%. When he actually does make contact, he's the opposite of Nico Horner. He actually drives the ball, right?
Yeah.
When he makes
He's
contact.
the ball hard.
When he makes contact, like, but that's the question. When does he make contact? And this is a deal breaker for me. I can't do it anymore. That's, I'm in a points league. That's negative points. I can't afford that. But if you're in a 5x5 traditional roto, you don't care about strikeouts. All you care is about these double digits right here and the 3 stolen bases. Leon, look at that.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed.
Meaning Swan at line.
You still there, Leon? I lost you
Yep,
there.
I'm still. No, I'm still here.
All right. What were you saying there? I don't know if it was me or if it was you, but can you repeat yourself one more time, please?
Oh no, it's cool. I was saying that Braves lineup, Swanson moves up and down that lineup, and since the lineup is so potent, the opportunities are there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, like you say, when does he make contact?
No, I mean, it's frustrating because he's a former first-round pick. He has all the tools. He comes with such high pedigree, and it's like, what more do you need? I mean, yeah, maybe not getting a consistent, not being in the order consistently, like, batting second every day or batting. I'll even take seventh every day if it'll make him feel more comfortable. But
Right.
yeah, I don't usually play in 5x5 roto leagues, so I gotta account for all these other things, and the on base percentage is the other one that I account for because I usually am in leagues that I account for on base percentage. 311.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, decent band from Nebraska, but this is not a good on base percentage whatsoever. 311. So
No.
amber is the color of his energy right here, and it's red, but that's as close as I'm gonna get to what I think amber looks like. Lori Garcia is another guy that's kind of intriguing. I never liked the guy, but he's getting regular at bats because the White Sox are just decimated by injuries. He appears to be having a really good year, 352 on base percentage, which is pretty damn good for him. Doesn't strike out too much, walks enough to be respectable. And he qualifies everywhere. He plays. I mean, you talk about utility guy. This is your utility guy who just kind of stumbled upon all these extra plate appearances because of injuries. So Nick Madrigal is out. Tim Anderson has a groin injury, so he might. I don't know how much longer he's going to get regular at bats, but while he does have these regular at bats, you might as well take advantage and see what he can do. He's in a pretty potent White Sox lineup, so he might be worth the price of admission. I mean, you could do a lot worse. You can have Jose Iglesias. Are you a believer of Jose Iglesias this year, Leon?
I'm not, but he kicked the Nationals' ass on Friday, so he's going to make me a believer.
There's another guy who has not walked yet. That's another game we could play. Who is going to walk first between Jose Iglesias? Let me color this a little bit differently. There you go. Between Jose Iglesias, Dylan Moore, or Ahmed Rosario. Who's gonna walk first at this point?
You know what? I'm going to go out on a limb and say Rosario, and he'll be the last one to take that bat when he gets to walk. So out of those three, I'm going to say Rosario.
I'm going to go with Iglesias. I just call it a hunch, but I think he's due for a walk. I picked up Wilmer Flores in a lot of my leagues. I'm pretty high on him. He's playing for the Giants this year. Already has 3 home runs, 8 RBI. As the Giants have been kind of a surprise as well. They don't look as bad as they did last year. So yeah, the numbers are impressive, and I think he's already in midseason form. So he appears to be the safest choice of the bunch here at second base. I mean, he's hitting the ball with such authority, 51.1% hard hit rate, taking advantage of the big time gaps out there in San Francisco, I believe. So, and the best thing about Flores, his swinging strike percentage is pretty damn low. So he can hit the ball with authority and not always chase for that big swing. So thoughts on Wilmer Flores over there, Leon?
Watched a lot of him when he was with the Mets. You know, quality bench player. I always thought he needed more at bats to get going.
Yeah.
When he went to Arizona, thought he would get the ABs, but he never really did. So I'm glad he's finally getting a shot here in San Francisco. You just worry about if he's the type of player that with more at bats does he get exposed. So so far he looks pretty good, but I think with his track record, I think Flores, like you say, is a safe bet.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine because I think his floor is high enough where you could be like, you know what, I could do worse at second base. I could do a lot worse. So it's safe floor, safe, and while he's hitting this high, you might as well, plug him in your lineup and take advantage. And, now you have a second baseman. At least that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm hoping for in my league. So and that takes care of middle infielder, unless you want to talk about any of these other guys I have not highlighted yet.
Nah, Freddie Galvis, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm done with him too. What was it thinking? He doesn't even have stolen bases. That's all right.
Yeah, that's a stick every year.
We have one more spreadsheet to share as we're actually making pretty good time. We might be done. The goal, Leon, as you know, is always to get it within the hour. Yeah. I think we're about to hit that mark if, Zoom could just cooperate with me a little bit. But in the meantime, I'm just going to get it ready. Any random thoughts on your end about this fantasy baseball season so far? How's your team doing, I guess I should ask?
Well, I drafted Yelich first, and that appears to be like a huge mistake right now. Yelich, I'm pretty sure he's going to get going. I drafted Strasburg. He made his start today, and he got shelled by the Orioles. So that's, you always as a fantasy and real life fan try to differentiate the two, but it's so damn hard. I drafted Stanton, and he goes in the injured list.
Wow.
The year was, rising. It's burning in flames.
I have both Christian Yelich and Steven Strasburg in my keeper league. This is a keeper league I've been a part of for like the last 20 years, almost 20 years. Maybe when you were 18 years old, that's when I started my league. So, Yelich is starting to come around slowly but surely. I put in Steven Strasburg in my lineup for this upcoming week. I might decide to bench him after what you just told me. This is not good news for me, Leon. I don't like what I just heard from you right now about Steven Strasburg. I wasn't aware that he was getting his ass kicked today.
Should I said spoiler alert?
Well, it sucks for me though because I don't have any other better options. I've been decimated with injuries in that league as well. Noah Syndergaard, Tim Anderson, Hunter Dozier. I've cut so many guys. I've cut Ken Giles already. I don't know. My team in that league is just surviving on duct tape and super glue at this point. So I did not need that bit of news.
Flex tape. Usually supposed to fix everything, but right now we're really running low. And the problem with this season, again, with so many teams missing games due to COVID, you really don't have any options, and you got to stick with these guys much longer than you would like.
Yeah, you have to make a judgment call eventually. Usually in a longer season, you have a little bit more time to make those decisions. But now it's like, you know what it is, Leon? It's like football season, right? You have to make these cut or keep decisions at a much more compact rate than what you're used to. But it's no different than what you do in football season with fantasy football. You only have, 12, 13, 14 weeks to make these decisions because you only have 4 months of a season. So, is the running back who you drafted first overall pick, how long do you trust him before you decide to cut him? I think this is the same mentality that fantasy leaguers in baseball have to make that adjustment and start kind of thinking in that manner. Would you agree that similar to fantasy football right here?
Uh, I would agree. The running backs are the most fickle position because one, they get the highest injury percentage rate,
Yeah.
as well as you can always usually pick up a running back later on in the season that just flashes up out of nowhere. And the problem is the other people in the league have the same thought. So it's always where you are on the waiver wire. When do you use your waiver claim? These type of things that always come into play.
Yeah. And I know in my Fantrax league, Sean and I, we did not raise the limit to how many ad drops we can have on a given week. We just kept it at 7, despite the fact. Wait, no, was it 7 or 10? I think it was 10. Despite the fact that COVID is just kind of decimating us, and honestly, it's only been 3 weeks, but I've used up all 30 of my transaction limits so far. Just because everybody's hurt. Not everybody's off to a slow start. You just kind of have to keep plugging and playing and until something sticks. So hopefully it sticks sooner rather than later, because like I said, we're gonna go into week 4, and the season's gonna end in about a month from now, a month and a half from now. So things to consider here. Last spreadsheet I'm gonna share. And it's about relief pitchers. I know relief pitchers boring, right? But I don't know about you, but I absolutely love talking about relief pitchers because it's such a niche category of discussion in terms of fantasy baseball. Because if you're not closing games and getting saves, then what good are you, right? You're not that good,
Right.
But at the same time, if you're in a league like I am, where you account for holds, you're looking at those guys, or if also, even in traditional 5x5 leagues, especially in head-to-head categories, I've used relief pitchers to kind of help me with the whips and ERAs right here. Because a dominant relief pitcher, even though they're not getting saves, they're gonna get a good whip of below 1.00 and even an ERA below 1.00. So it's kind of if you get a good one, those can keep your percentages up and running in those categories. Well, let me get your general thoughts on relief pitchers. How do you use them? When do you use them? Do you go the same route that I do, or do you strictly just go after closers? What's your thoughts on that?
So in my league, we do have holds. So those setup men are essential. And my theory is I always grab a lefty. If it's not the primary setup man, I always grab a lefty because they're always gonna get the opportunity for a hold. So I picked up Justin Wilson. I mean, the Mets won't win many games, but any game they have a lead, Justin Wilson's going to be in there. As far as drafting closers, you always work with the closer tier. Chapman's at the top, and then you get to your secondary where the wins are there, but any opportunities. I'm a big believer in Colome from the White Sox. He really came on a few years ago, but I usually draft them in the middle rounds, like the 10 to 15 range.
That's pretty interesting because let me ask you something. Were you like everybody else and it sounds like you didn't, but I just want to make sure with you, like most of the cheat sheets coming into this year had Josh Hader as the number 1 relief pitcher, and Chapman was number 2 and number 3. I refuse to do that. I think I just heard you say that I put Chapman at the very top of the list, and then maybe I put Hader at number 2, number 3. Did you do the same thing? How did you have your relief rankings at the very top?
Yeah, so mine is a bit weird. My closers I base not only on one, I base on a team and the amount of opportunity. So although Hader is really good and he can pick up the Ks, so Chapman is 1. I guess Hader would be 2, but for me, he would probably be 3 or 4. You look at a guy like, Jansen probably would have been years ago number 2, because the Dodgers are just going to rack up so many wins. You look out at Oakland, and you look out at the Padres, Kirby Yates. So Yates was probably in that second tier, but Colomé and I had very high. Daniel Hudson I had high before the starters got injured, but I had Chapman as one.
This, I don't know if you, I just switched spreadsheets because now we're talking about like one of my favorite subjects, and that's like, how do you rank players for your fantasy baseball drafts? And this is what my list looked like. I guess I did have Hader at number 2, but honestly, if I didn't have to draft Josh Hader, I'd avoid it, because I honestly believe that all these other guys behind him, these are supposedly, that's a depth chart for the Brewers coming into this season. It's so damn good. I mean, Brent Sutter is a pretty decent relief pitcher. David Phelps, Ray Black, Corey Knebel, Freddie Peralta, Corbin Burns can come in there. And then you still have one guy who was coming back from injury, and I can't remember the guy's. Oh, it was Knebel, sorry. So there's a lot of options in Milwaukee. And then Milwaukee, Josh Hader's left-handed. They might decide to say, well, we need you in the 7th inning right now. So go in there and shut it down in the 7th inning, and then we'll get someone else to pick up the saves. So I don't trust him. But who I do trust is Aroldis Chapman at number 1, because even though they have all these really good relief pitchers out here, the Zach Brittens of the world, the Tommy Conleys, there's no dispute as to who the number 1 closer is on that team, unless he's injured.
None.
And when healthy, he's it, like you mentioned. And same thing with Kirby Yates. But my philosophy is I usually wait around the middle tier, like the 10 through 15 spot, and maybe even number 9, which I did because I picked up Ken Giles in all my leagues. But I wait until like this big fat middle portion to really start looking for my closers.
Yeah.
And this year, the guy I kept chasing was Hector Neris. I drafted him in all my leagues just because him and Ken Giles actually, just because I figured, well, for the right price, for the position that they're being drafted, this seems to be the best value and the best fit for my team. And so far, Hector Neris has been pretty good once he came back from injury, from the injury list. So is that kind of like a similar? I know you mentioned Colomé, but is that kind of like similar to what you do? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very similar. Save opportunities if they're there. Despite the Hader's number of save opportunities, his K percentage is just through the roof. So you have to put him higher than your average closer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's more or less the same.
Really quick, see the Royals, right? I did not trust the Royals situation. I only had Ian Kennedy and Scott Barlow, and I am avoiding that like the plague. I don't want anything to do with the Royals this year. So I did not draft any Royals relief pitchers. But I'm mentioning the Royals because as we go on to the last spreadsheet of the day, I promise. As we're talking about the Royals, a new closer shows up out of nowhere. It's same as the old closer, and that's Trevin Rosenthal, who I forgot that Mike Matheny is now managing the Royals with Jesus. And I know you kind of I don't know if that was a good side or a bad side, but he's getting, what do you call it? He's getting. I just realized you can't see the screen. Sorry about that. Let me try that again. But getting back to Rosenthal and the Royals, he's getting the opportunities, and Matheny seems to trust him with that, with the ball. And I picked him up immediately in all my leagues last night while I was trying to do some prep work for this podcast episode. And like you mentioned, I heard you kind of scoff and sigh at the mention of me mentioning Trevor Rosenthal. What's going on over there?
No, I just remember him from last year, just walking guy after guy after guy. And to hear that he is getting save opportunities again for a team is mind-boggling to me. I mean, good for him. He throws 100. He didn't know where the hell it was going last year. So nice to see he's back on track.
I mean, brother, I think, fastball velocity, he leads all of these closers at 97.8%. So The velocity is there. The dominance is there. 16.8 strikeout rate. That's pretty damn high. Even for, yeah. I mean, it's not as high as, Caleb Ferguson at 20%, but, or even Tyler Clippard. Who thought that Tyler Clippard would still be dominant after all these years as a reliever? But getting back to Rosenthal, I mean, like I said, he's back with Mike Matheny. There's rapport there. He seems to have his confidence back. As I mentioned last week with Sean, Leon, I'm like the first few weeks or so of this season so far, I'm not even looking at who's closing. I'm not jumping the shark or going overboard, chasing after saves. But when I see a guy like Rosenthal getting 3 quick saves this fast, and he's dominant like this, I'd be stupid not to pick him up. And same thing with everybody else. I mean, if you're seeing this and you're seeing me highlight Trevor Rosenthal, you might be too late because everybody's starving for those saves. And it's not just like, and you know what? And the Royals are not very good. If they're going to win, they're going to win 1-run or 2-run games. That's a save opportunity for Rosenthal. Matheny's old school like that. He doesn't believe that the closer is a closer because he's a closer, 9th-inning guy. That's Rosenthal, if we are to believe the trends in Kansas City. So I know, because he was with the Nationals for the last couple of years, right?
Yeah.
If I remember. I know you're a little bit traumatized.
Yeah.
I know you're a little bit traumatized, but did I at least convince you to consider picking up Trevor Rosenthal on your team?
I mean, a closer for a bad team is paramount for fantasy leagues. You know, he can get you 2 to 3 saves, rack up a few Ks. It's better than having a guy in flux.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you're going to get, even if you know that the opportunities are scarce. So it'd be stupid not to at least take a chance on Rosenthal, knowing that he picked up 3 quick saves.
Yeah, and it's like the same thing we talked about last week about Joe Jimenez, who also leads. I think he was a league leader in saves as of last week when we were airing, or something to that effect. And I told Sean, well, it's the same thing I said at the beginning of the season back in the winter. You got to love Joe Jimenez because, number one, he's the undisputed closer. Number 2, he plays on a really crappy Detroit Tigers team who's only going to win by 2 or 3 runs, even though they've kind of been exploding for offense, but that's neither here nor there. But you gotta take that chance. And he's pretty decent. I mean, you could do a lot worse than him. And I know the Tigers and it's Joe Jimenez, it's an unknown commodity, but you got to take a risk on these bad teams with the really good relief pitchers, because sometimes that's the difference between winning and losing, especially in a category like saves. So I'm a big fan of Trevor Rosenthal. I think I'm turning Leon around just a little bit. So go ahead and pick him up right now. He's a must-have. I'm plugging him in all my leagues as an active starter right now. All 3 of my leagues, he's a starter for me on my team. So because I'm desperate, I need those saves and I need those points. So speaking of 3 quick saves, Jairo Diaz of the Colorado Rockies. I never know what the Rockies are up to, but he also picked up 3 saves this past week. Not as dominant as Rosenthal has been this past week, but do you trust Jairo Diaz moving forward here?
Me, no. Then again, I don't trust that Rockies team to really keep up what they're doing. So, I mean, if you're looking for, say, you need for a shortened season to steal a couple of weeks, why not? If you have a player, injured or you were on the fringe with anyway, you need the category. You're not really helping you. Diaz really couldn't hurt. This is the one position where I can really afford to play with my roster. It's not like a position player or starting pitcher. The relief pitchers I can move around need be.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it's like you're kind of obligated to take a chance on him as well. But me, I didn't. I didn't have the room, so it had to be. For me, it was one or the other. Trevor Rosenthal, the way he's pitching right now, is everything I look for in a relief pitcher, let alone a closer. So I had to. Jairo Diaz, there's a lot of things that I didn't like about him, as I've highlighted a few things. The 4.57 xFIP, which accounts for league average home runs. he has not given up a home run so far this year, which is kind of a red flag, especially for a Rockies pitcher, because you kind of expect it. The 1.35 whip is not very endearing either. So that's kind of a red flag. Like, why is it so high if he's supposed to be this dominant? But he's not very dominant. He doesn't even have over 10 strikeouts per 9 inning, as I'm highlighting there in red, or whatever that color is, maroon, rouge, I don't know. And the other thing I don't like is that, unlike Rosenthal, who's at 38.5%, what do you call it, outside the strike zone swing rate, Diaz is only at 30%, which for a closer, I'd like to see that be closer to 40% than 30%. So lots of red flags, but hey, the name of the game is opportunity. You're in a traditional 5x5 league. You're obligated to pick up Diaz as well. Anybody from this list that you kind of like here? I highlighted TJ McFarland because he leads this little list in holds, and I know you mentioned holds earlier. But anybody else, including TJ McFarland, that you want to talk about here?
Joaquin Soria is a guy that, he usually goes back and forth from setup to closing, the setup to closing. And, he's been a dominant closer before. And I look at the Oakland A's as a team, as a high-win team, to where if he can, go a couple of weeks, pick up a few saves, he might just roll into that closer role. And you go into a closer role in Oakland, you're bound to pick up they can pick up the victory for you right there. Plus, he has the track record as a closer.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt. Tyler Clippard, another guy, long-time closer, long-time setup man. That changeup doesn't get old. Another high-win team with the Minnesota Twins. If he's available, he's also a high strikeout guy. And I've been a Clippard fan since the goggles in DC, so I for Clippard.
Yeah, that's another guy you mentioned that he's gonna definitely get the opportunity to get the hold for whatever team he's playing on, just because he's so reliable. And I did highlight the fact that the velocity isn't there. 89 mile per hour, right. Four-seam fastball, 88.6 mile per hour sinker. But you mentioned his bread and butter is the changeup, which is usually a relief pitcher's secondary or tertiary pitch. For him, it sounds like it's his primary pitch. And I mean, you can't argue with the swinging strike rate. I mean, he's not getting the strikeouts, but you can't argue with him missing bats, so or forcing strikes on hitters. So that's something to consider. Doesn't hurt that he has a pretty low ERA as well. So yeah, that's not a bad. That wouldn't be a bad pickup, especially if you're in a holds league. Only other guy I wanted to talk about was I guess it would be Caleb Ferguson, who's kind of intriguing to me. The holds is there. He's getting the holds with the Dodgers. The strikeouts are there. He has not walked a single guy this season so far. The home runs per 9 innings is kind of a red flag. So mark that in red. But let's take a look here at the velocity. 95.9%, 95.9 miles per hour fastball from a left-hander. I believe he's left-handed, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
That's crucial. And unfortunately, he plays for the Dodgers, so he's not going to get a lot of save opportunities with Kenley Jansen at the back end, who personally, I think it's time for Jansen to just give up that role a little bit. But I guess he's kind of used to being the ninth inning guy. And like you mentioned before, experience is so invaluable in those situations. So I guess, but it's just like I've been watching his velocity numbers just keep dropping and dropping, and it's like eventually that's going to catch up to him. But I'll give him credit. Yeah. He adjusts. I mean, you've seen him firsthand. I remember them playing the Nationals, and we literally saw him in a division playoff round. We literally saw Kenley Jansen get a 2-inning save for the first time in his life during the playoffs, and that should tell you all you need to know about Kenley Jansen and what he's made out of. So those are intangibles we keep talking about, right?
Right.
But this other thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting you.
Oh no, that's cool. You were mentioning Ferguson's didn't walk anyone, but he's had a high home run rate. I was going to compare it to Scherzer. He has a low walk rate, but he challenges so many hitters, and you have a high velocity fastball. You more or less tend to give up more home runs, but if you're in love with Ferguson, I mean, I don't see much of an issue, but he's definitely there for the hold.
Yeah, for sure. And that's an excellent point you bring up on Max Scherzer, because that's another one where, like, oh, man, what is wrong with him? He gives up too many home runs. Like, hey, everybody's giving up home runs. I mean, the balls are juiced, let's face it. And so with starters, is not that big of a deal for me, but with closers, it is kind of sketchy, because it's like a starting pitcher has this many innings, right? 1 through 7 at most, to kind of correct themselves with those home runs. A relief pitcher only has that small window to be in there and be productive, and if the first thing you're doing is giving up a home run per 9 innings, or per inning, I should say, that raises your ERA, that raises maybe your WHIP a little bit, because now you're kind of flustered, and your pitch count goes up, and you're supposed to be in there for only maybe 9 pitches because you're thinking that this guy's going to strike out everybody that he sees, and yeah, it becomes a problem. But Ferguson has adjusted pretty well so far this year. He's always been a pretty good relief pitcher. Doesn't get a lot of fantasy love, because who cares about holds, right? Unless you're in that niche league. So there's that. Mm-hmm. Before we end the show, anybody else you want to talk about from this list?
Amazed Petit has been sticking around this long. Really remade his career.
Yeah.
Went from starter to setup man to closer, back to relief, back to closing. I mean, a jack of all trades. I'm impressed with Petit.
No walks issued so far this year. Respectable enough strikeout per 9. I mean, you want it to be higher than 8.10, but all things considered, especially the way Petit is made up, that's pretty remarkable in my view. 1.05 whip. So yeah, man, he's holding on. He's holding his own. Smoke and mirrors is how he does it. I mean, he doesn't induce a lot of outside this. Well, it's kind of similar to Tyler Clippard. So yeah, he doesn't induce a lot of swings, just like Clippard. And I'm matching him up with Clippard, because he also does not have much of a fastball, but he's doing it with smoke and mirrors. Probably has a nice changeup and a lot of movement on his secondary. What's supposed to be a secondary and tertiary pitches. I can't confirm it now because I don't want to look it up, because we're nearing the end of the show. But he is a pitch to contact relief pitcher, which is always a concern for me, because I want my relief pitchers to just blow the competition out of the water. I want my relief pitchers to have a contact rate below 70%, not above 70% at this point. But getting back to the slow guys, Clippard and Pettit, I mean, you know what you're getting. It's a safe floor. The holds, if you're in a holds league, they're going to be there. Low whip, not the strikeouts. The strikeout upside is not there, but you're definitely getting a low whip out of Petit. And like you said, the Nationals made his career way back when he decided that he was just going to completely stop him. And yeah, can you imagine? That year, the Giants went on to win the World Series just because Petit was so damn dominant. What would have happened if the Nationals would have won that extra inning game and then they went on to the World Series? Or would you have seen a World Series championship with Bryce Harper that year? They were a pretty damn good team that season too.
They were. I thought of all the playoff losses, that was the worst one, because they were so much better than the Giants.
Yeah.
But the entire team just stopped hitting then, and Brandon Belt became a all-world god that series. Him and Pep Sandoval.
Yeah. So, yeah. Nice. Sandoval, for all the things that we make fun of him because of his he's overweight and he's clumsy and his belts fall off their loops or whatever. At one point, he was a very clutch hitter, dominant hitter. One of the few guys that you look at him as like, why does he swing at everything? And you look at the numbers, it's like, oh, that's why, because he's one of the few guys that can make contact. He's a good bad ball pitcher is what I'm trying to say here. Hey, comes full circle, right? You know who was one of the better bad ball hitters of all time?
Vlad Guerrero.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that he's Vlad Guerrero, but I mean, it's kind of like the same approach. Like, if he sees it, he's swinging at it because he has that confidence, and he basically, I mean, he won a World Series MVP, right? Pablo Sandoval did back in the early 2010s.
I believe so, yeah.
I think it was against the Tigers. He hit 3 home runs. I believe you're right. 2012. I mean, he hit three home runs in that series against the Tigers. I think that's the one I'm thinking about, and that's all that really mattered. And he propelled the Giants to a championship. But getting back, we're talking about that World Series, that playoff series, because I can't even say his name. Yusmeiro Petit dominated the Nationals that playoff series, which honestly, Leon, I was watching that game. I think that game went to 18 innings, so basically you got a double header out of that one. And I could not believe that he was just surviving all those innings against the Nationals. A really good Nationals team too, by the way. I can't mention that enough.
You know what? Me, Matt Williams, who won Manager of the Year that year. But Petit throwing hot garbage for 5 innings just frustrated me. But would have never got there if Matt Williams doesn't take Jordan Zimmerman out in the 9th inning.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
And then they go on to sign Petit the next year, and he stinks.
If you can't beat him, join him, and then he joins them, and he sucks anyway. Yeah, I think the Nationals, they even last year, but it seems like Mike Rizzo did a good job of putting that roster together. And then the bullpen, it's kind of similar to what the Cubs are going through right now. Actually, since Theo Epstein took over, it's like no matter who he gets, no matter which failed project he gets in there and to try to coach him up and fix him up, they just couldn't do a good bullpen. Last year, they found Daniel Hudson just kind of sitting there on their bullpen, and he became the de facto closer. To this day, I mean, Sean Doolittle, he's not even trusted enough in late inning situations, let alone in the 9th to close out the games. It's the Daniel Hudson show, which is another guy I picked up in my leagues as well. Because it's kind of interesting how Mike Rizzo has also struggled to compile a bullpen, and that's all that's missing from him. Because again, very successful Nationals teams throughout the 2010s and even last year. I mean, it's only fitting that they won the 2019 World Series. And his big Achilles heel for his majority of the tenure was that he couldn't put a formidable bullpen out there for his World Series contending teams all those years. So, like again, Cubs are going through the same thing. So I know what you're going through.
Yeah. Kimball was done years ago. I don't know what they saw on Kimball.
I mean, he still throws with high velocity. I think that's part of the allure, is that he's throwing with high velocity. I know velocity isn't everything, but it's for a relief pitcher, it's like, point A. That's like the first thing you look at. It's like, oh, wow, he's throwing 96 miles an hour. Let's see if we can coach him up, put some command on it. Unfortunately, the Cubs have a poor track record of that. And I tell this to all my fellow Cubs fans, like the Cubs have such a poor track record of developing these failed starters and converting them into relief pitchers. I don't know why. Theo Epstein is supposed to have this program and all of this, all these guidelines as to what to do with how to coach up prospect, how to show them the Cubs way, how to do this, puts all this emphasis on development. And it seems like when it comes to pitching, it's like it's nowhere to be found, especially at closers. Then you see a team like the Padres. That's the example I always give. The Padres are loaded with guys who used to be starting pitchers, and I would gladly take the Padres bullpen over the Cubs right now in a heartbeat. I'll take the Padres the last 5 years over bullpen over the Cubs bullpen the last 5 years. Maybe we don't trade Gleyber Torres for Aroldis Chapman, and we had some of the guys the Padres have had over the last 4 or 5 seasons. So, any last words from you, Leon? And before you do, thank you so much for showing up at the last minute and coming in as we're talking about relief. I mean, there's a method to my madness. Like, we're talking about relief because you're coming in relief for Sean Flannery. So why don't you go ahead and throw the last pitch for the last out. Go ahead.
Well, I'm glad to come in, get the save, so to say. But I'm a big fan of your show.
Thanks, man.
You guys do a wonderful job, and just keep doing your thing, man. I'm real proud of you.
Yeah, man. It's likewise. Glad. Listen, if you guys love basketball, check out Leon and Jacob at the Stepback. They do a fantastic job. They've just been recently named admins because of their attitude, effort. Like everybody, like we get a lot of requests, Leon. Hey, can I be an admin? If you need help, let me be an admin. Let me be an admin. No, you gotta show us what you can do. You gotta not just tell me you want to be an admin, but you gotta show that you want to be an admin. And from the very beginning, Leon and Jacob had done an outstanding job in our basketball group. And once they told us that they wanted to do a podcast to be like the exclusive podcast of our basketball group, that's when it hit on me. Like, hey, these guys have to be admins, and they've pretty much taken over. Like, I barely do anything there anymore, and it's basically Leon and Jacob, the Leon and Jacob show over at Ballless Life, and that's what we're looking for. Make my life easier, and you can become an admin. That's all you got to do, right? But no, seriously, you guys have been doing an outstanding job, and I cannot sing your praises enough because of that. So thank you so much for your hard work, and you and Jacob.
No, it's no sweat, man. Just glad to do it, and glad I got my partner over there. But you guys do wonderful jobs throughout all the groups, so it's just glad to be part of the team.
Absolutely, and we're glad to have you on the team. And for that, we say good night, goodbye, good afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and enjoy the rest of the baseball games out there. See you all later.